Well, hello there, everybody. Yeah, just jamming out. I tell you, Leon Russell, man, I missed that dude. He was quite something in the day, and wow, that's all you can say as I cut him off now and say goodbye, sir. So, favor to everyone. Happy Thursday to you all, and may favor abound in your life this day. And thank you for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Um, y'all are the best, and all I can say is thank you. Hello, Nina and Kaz. How you doing? Kaz, you really ought to listen to that album, Will o' the Wisp, and there are some really good cuts that I think that you could check out. Hey there, Lois, Sarah, how are you doing? David Castle and David Barry and Source Frequency. Righteous background, isn't it, Sarah? Source Frequency. I mean, seriously, I worked hard to find that one. Good to see you, Delta. Hello, and Sherry. And wow, so much peace and love to everybody this day. That's the way we do it. Just simply say we love you and let peace reign supreme. And when you're doing that, then you can add a little bit of favor, because that means to empower to prosper you, which means is that actually edifies you, lifts you up. Hey, it's the age of Aquarius. What can I say? So good to see you all. What a day! What a day! So happy birthday to those who are having one, and happy anniversary, whoever and whatever. People do have those, and so congratulations on either account. Tonight on artistfirst.com, let's see, 10 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. my time, the Steiger perspective. This is the private meeting. I figured that, well, that's a format that I can put tens of thousands into, and they do. And so come on over. Again, artistfirst.com, Steiger perspective. The title of tonight's show is The Rejection of the Injection, and you can pick up from there. But it will be informative. It will be, well, it won't be a waste of your time. Love the tea. So Friday is card day, tarot carol card day. Got Nina and Amber and Steve and Jennifer. Great group. This Saturday night, I will be a guest of the Milky Way Soul Tribe channel, Robert V. I think that's 10 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. my time. And then December 20th, over on the Adronoma 7 channel, I think it's the Convergence. It's I will be along with many others as we usher in. I don't care how you look at it, we're ushering in something. So yeah, whatever that something is, it's going to be something. Wow, I just said that twice in a sentence that was actually coherent enough that it really worked. So what's happening, everyone? Good to see everyone in the chat room. Barry, you said what? I already made a stand against. There you go. Yeah, the 70s, the 60s prepared us for a mindset that who would have known? Love. Love conquers all, right? That is the key. So I'm enjoying this book. I got to tell you, I know there was someone who says, well, I don't like it when you read. And I go, well, you know what? I've got 100 to 1 who say that they do. There's a lot of people who listen to us who can't participate in the chat room, and they are at work and they listen. They put the headsets on, and you know what? So for them to say, well, now, if you could see that, because they ain't seen anything. So, and besides that, when we talk about this history, it's, for me, it's something I can relate to. I studied this stuff. I mean, for decades. It was part of my devotion to that God, that I studied the word every day. and put it to memory and, activated it, as Hebrews 4:12 says. I put the word that we get, it's the same word for nuclear um, energy, that when you speak the word, now I'm getting it, because there's actually truth to this stuff, folks. There's a language that we've lost, and we speak a language today that has been so bastardized that it distorts understanding what the meaning of a word is. I appreciate the gifts and talents of people like Julianne Payne, who come in and show us, well, thank you, Lost in Space, how, our words, what their origins are, and how today, how we use it in a vernacular that is, quite frankly, just a sign of ignorance. The English language is a language of ignorance, and we don't have the pure languages anymore. No one knows what actually the original Latin was. No one knows what the original Greek was. Always is odd. So how did fishermen understand the meticulous language of the ancient Greek dialect? How did they figure that out? Anyway, I move on. So there we go. Hey, Alien Believer. Hey, CZQ. David Castle. Good to see you. Boots on the ground. Welcome, Emperor Rec and Bonnie. So good to see y'all. So for me, I find this interesting. The guy who actually had this channel to him, he has his channel on YouTube, and I'll put a link to it. Listen to him. It's kind of interesting to hear how he came about meeting this individual, and doesn't surprise me. I think that there are many that live among us. We're not all the same on the inside. There are different occupants occupying these earth suits. And this is really what we are in, is an earth suit. Our consciousness is tied to this earth suit. It's an actual living, breathing suit. Many sci-fi writers have done stories depicting the very same thing. One that comes to mind very quickly is Independence Day. The aliens were living inside a bio suit. Very interesting. I often wondered, did they have a soul? Did they have a spirit? We all think that life depicts us, that, somehow they're in this duality that we are. I got a sense that if you're really of a higher intelligence, you may find it difficult to understand that they wouldn't think in a dualistic way. They would be above that. Someone wrote, and I have to agree, the story of Moses. Now, that was that one to me was worth the price of admission yesterday. It was like, never saw it from that perspective. Yeah. And so as we get into today's reading, it's going to get interesting, because we're going to talk about Abraham, where he came from. And it always amazed me when I was in the Christian religion, how ignorant people really were. People didn't know who or what Sumer was. They had no idea, but it's actually written in their scriptures. And the book of Zechariah was one of the most interesting passages I remember in Bible school back in the 80s, coming across it and going, Sumer, and from Sumer comes these UFOs. And Zechariah is standing there with this alien being, and this spaceship literally comes up to Zechariah. And as he describes it, it looked like a scroll rolled up on its end. And in the front kind of pods, which we now know would actually be where the pilot would sit, there were two female pilots that were piloting the craft, and there was another being on there. And then it describes the spaceships taking off from where Zechariah was, going back to Sumer. Now, that's some wild stuff, folks. I mean, to me, I think that's even more remarkable than Ezekiel's will. And all that was the Yosha of Yahweh and his spaceship. That's how the Elohim travel. And their technology continues to advance. But yeah, that was the one. And so every time I find a story about Abraham, because Abraham is the matriarch of the three big religions of today, when you combine the Abrahamic religions all together, it represents, well over 50% of the population's belief systems. That's nearly 4 billion people. So that's a lot of energy being directed at these belief systems. And so let's pick up. So everyone have fun in the chat. I'll join you when we get where we decide to say, hey, let's break it off here. But like I said, I do so enjoy this. And I know many of you do as well, because you write in the comments. Then thank you for putting the thumbs up and subscribing. Apparently, appreciate that. All right. So we have the story of Abraham and Sarah. Before proceeding to the insights of the Pyramid Code, I would like to share one story that is very close to my heart and my first incarnation. In the year 3000, according to the Hebrew calendar, 760 BC, in our calendar, Sarah, the high priest, was 600 years old. It was not common to celebrate a birthday in those times. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, that gets a little redundant. It's like, oh, crap, again? Listen, I've already had 780 of these. I'd appreciate the thoughts, but, folks, let's get on and let's move on about this. Just saying. Anyway, most people did not even know when they were born. And if they did, they would hardly receive any acknowledgement regarding it. Interesting. There were not too many people who reached such an old age. In my opinion, Sarah and Gamma reached this age due to the Bakra process that they went through, along with their proficient knowledge of the secrets of creation. So let's just stop here a second. This is an interesting, I want to get the gentleman that actually put this out, send him an email to get him on the show here, because I think I'd love to, exchange knowledge. So this baraka is a process. Now, everyone would probably like to know what is the process, because there seems to be a transmutation taking place physically down to the cellular level. Now, that's interesting. And then they have this proficient knowledge of the secrets of creation, capital C. Those are the things I meditate on. That knowledge. Wow. They use this knowledge in their personal lives and in their work as priests. They also lived a very clean, vegan lifestyle. Would make sense, as did the rest of the Pharaohs. The problem with being a vegan today, the hypocrisy about being vegan, is that, quite frankly, unless you're growing your own, you have no way of knowing what you're consuming. So many pesticides, insecticides, the soil could be contaminated. I mean, really, it's today, I think it could be debated which is of a more healthier choice. There's just a lot of people who have in their DNA, in their blood, they have to have the protein of meat. It's because we come from different places, man. Oh no, many souls, the same spirit. Anyway, so it's good to know that the Pharaohs were vegans. I mean, I'm sure that the lion that we read about yesterday appreciated that as well. If they would not have perished on the 9th of Av in the year 3339 or the year 421, in the destruction of the first holy temple, they would have most probably lived past 1,000. So that must have been a hell of a battle when Nebuchadnezzar came in with his troops. And back then, they didn't play by the rules. There were no rules. If you were there to conquer, you were there to plunder, you were there to conquer. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, the Babylonians came in and cleaned everything out. It happened to the Pharaohs as well. The Pharaohs and the high priest generally avoided sexual intercourse. Now, that's interesting, unless their intention was to reproduce. Physical love and mating occasionally occurred through normal intercourse, coitus, as we know it today, but they mostly committed the act through meditation and telepathy with almost no physical contact except for holding hands and in some cases by touching legs. Now, folks, I remember back in the early 70s that we used to practice what they would call feeling energies. And it was very sensual, and it describes a lot of what this sounds like. Look at this, how that comes in. This is interesting. But through meditation and telepathy. You know, I wonder if we would practice that. I'm going to have to talk to Lynn about that. That'd be kind of cool. Anyway, the high priest would also mate by touching foreheads. Now, that is really interesting. Wow. Mating in this way preserved the essence of their bodies in a physical sense. I keep on thinking of Amber and what she was saying. It also preserved their internal energy, which was the secret of their vitality for their spiritual work. Folks, there is some real, this is code. This is all I got to tell you. This is code. They're telling us something here. Now, I realize that these beings had I don't know if it was a gene. I don't know if it was a third strand of DNA. Whatever the Pharaohs had, we know that they were a photosoul, so they were alien. But this is interesting because we all have this same physical energy. And it's interesting that they actually touched foreheads together. Wow, it's interesting. This is the reason why most of them would live such long lives compared to us today. Very few people truly knew how old Mano and Gamma were, as they kept their age a secret. The people of the Jewish nation revered Gamma and Sarah as they were elders and priests. The people of the nation loved them and vice versa. One day in Jerusalem, on the holiday of the Shabbat, a young couple approached Sarah. Their names were Abraham and Sarah. This is not connected to Abraham and Sarah from the Bible. Well, now, this is interesting because, you know, what's going on here? Do we have a doppelganger kind of effect going on, or whose story is what? So let's read this. Abraham was roughly 30 years old, and Sarah was just under 25 years old. Well, this couldn't be the one coming from some air. They were privileged to meet with the high priest in private, which is not customary, because of the high priest relationship with Sarah's father, who was a highly respected and well-connected man. The father requested help for his daughter. They came with the hope of receiving a blessing and help, since they have been married for 10 years and still could not have children. Abraham asked for permission to marry a second wife, and together they requested help to get pregnant. Well, this certainly sounds like the Abraham and Hagar story. I don't know. It certainly has parallels. Additional marriages for a man was something that was permitted in those days, so long as the wife does not show any resistance and the rabbi of the community approves. Sarah was very much resistant. Well, that mirrors the story in Genesis. She had power and influence because her father's status in the community. Her husband, Abraham, insisted on a second wife, but did not oppose the blessing. So the blessing, and it's the culture of the people back then, because many of these people were tribal, nomadic, that the blessing of the family's patriarch was very important. That's, the story of Jacob and Esau. Sarah, the high priest, smiled to himself because he recognized the souls of Abraham and Sarah from their prior reincarnations. However, it was not proper or wise to mention that at the time. Abraham was Myrrh, and Sarah was Roka. They seem to really come back in cycles, right? They seem, what I'm getting here from the anonymous author here is that these are pods. This is a tribe. They reincarnate together. It looks like to me they come in situations that inevitably they're going to cross paths. Inevitably, they're going to reconnect again because they bring with them the rock, the spirit with them in each incarnation, as apparently we do. The blessing that the couple received from the high priest helped tremendously, and in a short period of time, Sarah gave birth to twins, 2 daughters. But this is not the same story as in Genesis. One was named, I think that is it Parchia? Okay, I'll go with that. And their second daughter was named Shire. Yeshua, the son of Nun, from the previous incarnation. Shula in his current. Okay, besides the blessing that they received from the high priest, they also had to go through a general physical and mental cleansing, which includes living a clean vegan lifestyle. By the age of approximately 35, Sarah was already a mother of 8. Well, when I see things like this means they were having lots of coitus. I mean, what else do you do, right? You're either working or sleeping. Yeah. So let's see. She had Ezekiel, Moses, Hezekiah, Chaya, Nevada, Eliezer. Okay. Sarah and Abraham lived a good life. If I'm not mistaken, they lived until roughly the age of 80 years old. Well, this is not the same ones in Genesis. Abraham in Genesis lives to be well into his 120s. They also, have always been and still are a part of my soul family. Well, yep, we all have a soul family. The family friendship between Sarah Gama and the young couple became even stronger over the years. This caused a little discomfort for Sarah and Gama because of the fact that they knew the truth behind the priesthood. The fact that they took the place of the high priest and that they are not from the Levitical tribe or part of the offspring of Aaron, the high priest and his family. This was a small yet big lie. Lies everywhere, folks. That's what we found out yesterday. In the eyes of Sarah and Gamma at the time, there are many distortions and conflicts between the true story and the official historical story. Now, isn't that a paradox right there? So, in one hand, we've got the true story, but then on the other hand, we got the official historical story. Now, one is saying it's the truth. The other one says, I don't give a damn whether you got the truth or not. This is what history says. Yeah. I mean, how do you argue with that? Seriously. I was like, yeah. Which is something that personally makes me uncomfortable today. I can dig that, but I will elaborate on this later. I have to emphasize the fact that this incarnation was extremely long, very interesting and full of love, excitement, upheaval, and many bumps along the road. Well, I love the love part. Excitement is always good. Upheaval and many bumps. Well, we all live it, don't we? The new recertifications, the tukon in Hebrew, that I went through in other reincarnations make no sense compared to this incarnation. However, I suppose that that is the way of the world, especially the spirit world. With all the knowledge and experience, I always ask myself at the end of the day, why, how, when, what will happen in the near and distant future? The more now I see and learn, the more I realize that I don't know or understand anything, that we are just one drop in the entire ocean. I've been thinking about this, and I get now why probably it's not such a good idea to have access to your total incarnations and memories. I think it would drive most people insane. Nothing would make sense. Everything would be opposite. Everything would be distorted. Belief systems that you and I possess, that we carry with us, would be entirely upended. You know, that's the interesting thing as you continue on this path. You begin to say, okay, you know, I'm seeing something here I hadn't seen before. And it would make sense because my thought has always been, well, it's ridiculous that we don't have access to this information. How am I supposed to progress if I have done something before? You know, the argument. But then again, I can dig the fact that if your consciousness enveloped the thousands of potential incarnations, that's living in the fifth dimension, I believe. This is Trina and I were talking. Interesting. That's all I got to say. I know the story of Abraham, well enough, but that's interesting. I'll have to chew on that a while. All right. So now we're at the point of the pyramid. Well, it's about time. At the request of Rabbi, I will try to explain and write the essence of the pyramid code without revealing the code itself. Okay. It seems like that's how we come into this world, you know? So you're going to tell me, but you're not going to tell me what you're saying. You know, it's like telling a person who is doesn't have their sight. And if they've never had their sight, trying to describe the color blue to them, or describe the color yellow, or describe the fact of what happens when you blend what they do not have any reference to, a yellow or a blue, and then you tell them what they come and get. I mean, yeah. It can be done, though. Everything I'm writing is only from my memory and knowledge that I have acquired in recent years, and some of what I remember from my first incarnation. I'm not able to remember everything, and as time goes by, my memories become less reliable. My memory betrays me sometimes, and in my current reincarnation, my body does as well due to my missions, or maybe it's more acute to say that I betrayed my body in spite of my missions and knowledge. Interesting term he used there. How many of us have betrayed our bodies? We want to blame our bodies for the ailments and what have you, but the body, I mean, most people I talk to look at me like I'm, where did you come from? When I asked him, I said, do you give recognition to your spirit body, your body of your spirit? What are you talking about? And I just, right there, And I love how this guy uses that word, that I betrayed my body. I'm sure that the knowledge that I possess is not perfect and whole. My memory becomes sharper and more pronounced as I write, always does. As I went through the Bakra process, which is a long process that takes years, now we get a little bit more insight to this. I first learned about current world history. Only after did I begin to learn about the spiritual power as opposed to the physical power and how the two can be connected. This is a long, tedious, and difficult process to digest. I will begin with a little background on the Pharaohs, the Photosol. What were the part of the evolution of Earth's development in the distant past? Ooh, now this is one you want to get, fresh hot coffee, or chocolate milk, or whatever you're going to drink, tea. And you want to get up next to that fire because now I want to know, all right, so tell me. I love learning about creation. Earth operates according to natural laws that are set by the Creator. Earth is always moving, evolving, and changing. Change and evolution in the spiritual world is propagated by different waves, frequencies, and vibrations that are consistent to each form in nature. This energy remains in these abstract forms until it penetrates matter, which results in the changing of matter or the creation of new matter. This process can be achieved through spiritual words or spiritual powers via waves, frequencies, and vibrations. In other words, flesh is created differently from an animal to a human being. A brain is created differently than a human heart. Everything has its own frequencies, its own physicality, and its own spirit within it that affects its waves and vibrations. As spirit transforms itself into physical matter, the material that accumulates, such as the death of a body, reverses its direction and returns back to spirit. It may further transform to become source, energy, power again. This process continues for many years. It is a very slow process that spans millions of years. Let's just stop and go back on this one because this one, there is a code within this. I mean, many of us are going, hey, wait a minute. I know some of this. So the earth is always moving and evolving and changing. So it's not static, it's dynamic. Change and evolution in the spiritual world is propagated by different waves, frequencies, and vibrations that are consistent to each form in nature. This energy remains in these abstract forms until it penetrates matter, which results in the changing of matter or the creation of new matter. Now, that's some heavy physics going on right there, but I can see exactly what's being said here. The next part is the one I want to focus in on. The process can be achieved through spiritual words or spiritual powers via waves, frequencies, and vibrations. This is interesting because a word is power. It is a wave, it's a frequency, and it's a vibration. Flesh is created differently from an animal, and that makes sense, as is a brain. Look at this one, and this is interesting, that everything, your earth suit has many different layers to it. And from this, it has its own spirit within it. That's what we were just talking about, that affects its wave and vibrations. I mean, you can see, for myself, I can easily come into a situation and I know if there's an angry person there. I can feel it. I can also feel when there's no soul inside. I'm seeing them more and more. And it's rare that I find a fellow being on the same frequency that I'm on. I'm smiling all the time. A lot of people don't smile. And isn't it interesting that as the spirit transforms itself into physical matter, the material that accumulates, such as the death of a body, reverses its direction and returns back to spirit? Isn't that so? There's that process again. It confirms that, death isn't anything. Death is a release. That's all it is. You're going to go back from where you came from. And you're going to say, oh man, this one was a little intense, folks. It's what you're going to be telling your tribe, going, you would not believe it. You had to be there. He goes on to say, and look at the process. Again, more code. This process continues for many years. It is a very slow process that spans millions of years. I mean, if you look at time, then time in this case would be the evil, because there appears to be a natural process to everything, that which is seen and that which is unseen. And if time is removed, if you take the fourth dimension away, then we would elevate up into this upper dimension, this convergence, this higher realm, which I am convinced is the fifth dimension. Well, we get back to this. Boy, this is interesting. I'm trying to preserve the language and the style of Rabbi in this document, but it is not easy. The original document was written in Hebrew and translated into English. Hebrew is my native language, but my ability to speak and write was always weak. As a Gentile, I can understand that. I do have 1% of Jewish blood in me. So, I always remember what Rabbi Fuchs says, Wayne, do the Jewish people a favor, don't convert. All right, so the original divine race. The initial race here on earth was a very spiritual race. Now, I don't know what spiritual means in this case. It's, because I don't think it means worship. And so my mind immediately triggers, I need to understand what his reference is to what spiritual means. All right, we continue. I would say that they were 90% spirit and 10% matter. Well, I think that would make you almost translucent. But anyway, the spiritual world and its laws ruled the world as opposed to the material world and its laws that we know today. The initial race was a conscious race with appreciation, love, and understanding for the divine plane and the laws of nature. I'm talking about a very far away era, way before Atlantis or even Adam and Eve. I'm talking about a community that was naturally conscious and enlightened, without desires and impulses as we have in our current days. This was a race that was fully aware. This was a race that knew the secrets of nature and understood the secrets of creation. They had knowledge that had no boundaries. One that was characterized with a direct divine connection to the Creator. This was a race that knew how to control and guide nature. This was a race that did not have to work for their livelihood and did not have pain during childbirth. Nature worked for them, and they preserved nature according to the Creator's will. However, there's always a however. I often replace however with but, B-U-T-T. However, for some reason, which I do not understand, there was another race that arrived or was created to Earth. Now that's interesting because that's two different that's two different things here. Either they arrived or they were created to Earth. Now, so that means if someone was creating this, there had to be another creator. Kind of goes along with what I've been saying, that we ain't all from the same source. But anyway, they were a very different race. They looked like the original race, but they were spiritually void. They were 90% matter and 10% spirit. I suppose that they are the forefathers of Adam and Eve. This new race did not know peace or quiet. Due to interbreeding, the spiritual race was weakened and became physical matter, a process that took eons. I got a lot of things going now. All right. So, how would spirit? How how does how does spirit have coitus with physical matter? My namesake relative, who committed suicide for Lilith, that was his goal. He wanted to have sex with Lilith. And who knows, right? But this is interesting because they were very different race, and due to interbreeding. It's an interesting term, interbreeding. I mean, are we talking about interbreeding of species here? And the spiritual race was weakened and became physical matter. So what did they have? Lust? I mean, do they have sexual organs? I don't. It would imply yes. The same divine race mated with the female of the other race, and they gave birth to mixed offspring of different sizes and colors. The new race had a very primitive brain with slow development. They were a race void of divine emotion. Along the way, there were a few who were spiritually grand, but no one reached spiritual level of the initial divine race. The original divine race, the grand spirits, are trying to rebalance the earth up until the present day. All right, so let's analyze this a second here. Well, apparently you can be of the divine race and still not know everything. Apparently you can make mistakes. Apparently, and here's my question, so do they have an ego? Ergo? Igo? I don't know. Obviously they screwed up. Maybe they should have practiced more of the, spiritual coitus than the physical coitus. I don't know. But anyway, you want to sum up that whole paragraph, it's about sex. It seems like spirits are really interested in sex too. Seems like you don't lose that when you cross over. I don't know. I mean, I'm just reading this. I've read it in many other books too. It's all about sex. I mean, if you're really on the spiritual path, does that mean you got time to think about sex? I mean, if you're deep meditation, do you see the babe next to you and go, oh man, wow. I don't know. I mean, this is what it's implying. I'm just reading it. On the 10th of Teshri, the year 1010, according to the Hebrew calendar, 2750, our calendar, aliens, the photosol, came down to Earth from 4 different stars, planets, that were destroyed for reasons that are unknown to me. Now, that's a big deal there. I mean, if you're talking the destruction of a planet, that's a lot to get into. The aliens that remained were sent here to assimilate, well, damn, this sounds like the Borg, with the native race and slowly rule the world in a positive way. Okay, maybe they're positive Borgs, I don't know. Each group went to a different part of Earth, north, south, east, west. By the way, I did a video of this 4 years ago talking about the 10 gods, the 10 races that came here. But anyway, the Pharaohs reached what we know today as the African and Egyptian regions. They were all part of the original divine race. For the most part, all the aliens looked like ordinary human beings. The Pharaohs had a long rectangular skull, unlike human beings on Earth, and had a round skull. The bodies of the Pharaohs were thin, noble, and tall. They were dark-skinned, and their facial bones were protruding as they were blessed with noble beauty. Well, I guess beauty's in the eye of the beholder. The group that reached the west was dark, short, and possessed a large round skull with a large progressive brain. Their bones were thick. They seemed to be the ancestors of the original divine race that had been diluted over time. These beings are the ancestors of the present-day South American Hispanics that reside in places such as Mexico and Peru. The goal was to try and transform the corrupt and materialistic race on Earth into a spiritual race that would bring peace and quiet without pressure, fights, or wars. A race that would be preoccupied with the spiritual and not the physical. The Pharaohs began to turn the earth from a materialistic place to a more spiritual place, and the initial success was overwhelming. However, as time went by, Photostol and their new generation began to mate with human beings. Brings up a lot of questions here, just on a cultural, social scale. What, again, apparently something about Earth's women that drives these spiritual beings nuts, because they get involved with it all the time. The superior spiritual race planted itself into the materialistic race, which caused them to lose their spiritual powers and dilute their personal power as well as their future offspring. They tried to elevate the lower vibrational race out of the material into the spiritual, but over time they failed. Slowly, Photosol and their offspring became weak, animalistic beings that were full of lust and excess desire. Told you. Instead of being spiritual beings, suddenly they found themselves with tyrannical, cruel, spiritless, and fearless rulers that instilled fear within the entire nation. A very similar reality to what is happening on Earth today. As we understand it today, the mission failed. However, I know for sure that God does not give up. I don't know which God. That's my comment. And the work will continue to completion. Glad to hear it. It is an ongoing process, and we are on our way to the eternal light, which is the age of love. Within another 1 or 2 reincarnations at the most, we will reach this place. In fact, this eternal process is the work, destiny, and goal of entities such as the Rabbi and Adam. It is the destiny of souls like the Pharaohs who have come here to save themselves and planet Earth from physical and spiritual extinction. I believe that the day will come when the Son of God, the Father Soul, will manifest in a human body to show all mankind the way out of darkness and into the light, from stress to consciousness. That entity, in my eyes, will be the Messiah. Well, you know, if we look at this just from a philosopher's perspective, 2 points. One, obviously, the physical has within its essence the ability to trap a spirit, but it appears that the spirit goes willingly. It basically shuts itself and immerses itself into the orgasm itself. And that's really what we're talking about here. But on the other hand, I can also see we don't know where the timeline of the process of this evolution is at. We very well may be at the end of the process. It's very possible what we read right here. And we don't know how long ago whoever they are of this higher realm, when they realized that they had failed. And if that's the case, we're talking thousands and thousands of years ago. I don't think that they've been idle. I don't think they went out and decided to take a 6-pack and go fishing. No, I think they immediately. And so again, I'm looking at this in, well, you can almost say multi-spatial perspective. Many of us would probably say, I think we're at the end of this cycle, the end of this process. And I don't think there's going to be any clue. I think, boom, baby, it's going to happen in a twinkling of an eye. All right, we'll get into the technology of the Pharaohs. The Pharaohs began to take control of everything and slowly began to rule the earth. They tried to create a new spiritual world. They needed to preserve, protect, and develop the tools they used for their work and the vehicles used for transportation for future generations. Their world was destroyed, so now I'm getting it. You ain't got no, you're not going to get the year 9500 new model. You're going to have to keep the one you got going. The pyramids were part of the structures used for just this purpose, which is why we see pyramids in different parts of the world. The pyramids were not built solely as tombs. They were built to protect and preserve the various tools and spaceships that the pharaohs used. The pyramids were built using physical and spiritual tools that could control and manipulate gravity. Such tools are used to lift megalith stones and to build pyramids. The stones were carved out of different mountains using laser technology. The pharaohs brought new technology into the world that provided them with the ability and power to control human beings. The term EMF stands for electromagnetic field. Electromagnetic fields are part of the earth as well as our bodies. It was and still is the phenomenon that naturally occurs during creation. However, modern day humans have changed the various frequencies and waves in the earth by despicable, corrupt, and abhorrent technology, which has caused the largest spiritual void that we have ever experienced. Wow. The corrupt manipulation of Earth's electromagnetic field is currently causing mental and spiritual sickness and disease. The pharaohs brought with them a different form of technology called electromagnetic pulsation, EMP, and electromagnetic laser pulsation, EMLP. In the Pharaoh language, EMP was called Megan. The MEMLP was called Maga. Both of these names translates to shield in English. The technology gave them the ability to build massive pyramids. Underneath these massive structures are very large basements that house the tools and the technology used to make them. Originally, there were 666,000 pyramids on Earth. Today, we are left with fewer than 100,000 of different shapes and sizes. Most of the pyramids built in the world have been destroyed over time, not by man, but by a supreme power. In the years following the Exodus, the age of the Pharaohs came to an end, and they, along with their technology, mostly disappeared from the world. There are still a small number of the deluded offspring of the Pharaohs that are living among us today. They are recognizable by their body and their skull structure, as they are the remnants of the Pharaohs and still have physical distinctive features. Some of their technological devices were stolen by people unknown to me. What I do know is that the world elite have access to this technology, which poses a big threat to the entire universe. It is in the wrong hands. EMP and EMLP are technologies that can destroy a country like the United States in less than an hour without warning. I am not sure specifically who possesses these devices, and I'm also unsure if some governments have this technology. I have a feeling and believe that outside of the world elite, Israel and Russia both possess this technology. I do not think that the United States has it just yet. The TLS has similar devices that I saw through my work with them over the last 10 years. EMP is capable of neutralizing atomic military systems. Well, that's not good. EMLP is able to disintegrate entire cities in seconds. This technology can build or destroy anything based on the intention of its operator. Now, folks, I've done videos on this. In fact, this is what they found with the first UFOs that we captured, shot down. They couldn't drive them because they were integrated through the mental telepathy of the pilots. I hear we have pilots in craft that are exactly doing that today, but who knows? To my knowledge, no one has found the hidden basements under the pyramids just yet, but I'm sure that they are still there. Some of the machinery and equipment that is stored in those basements include aircrafts, spaceships. They are huge energetic tools that need to be recharged by the sun every 1,000 years in order to function. There are no batteries. These machines work primarily through the use of the sun along with magnets. Even the magical staff that we read about in ancient books works with the same energy. These staffs can change the Earth's gravitational pull with respect to a specific object at any given moment. These staffs even have the ability to provide a person with the power and ability to shapeshift, as long as that person was born with the proper genetics in order to do so. These staffs can also cure various diseases. Some of the tools and machines I'm speaking of are under the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. They were hidden there by Mano and Gamma before the destruction of the first holy temple. Although these energies and tools can be very helpful and necessary, they can also be very destructive and threatening if used by satanic or corrupt human beings. The power of the pyramid and the pyramid code depends quite a bit on these tools and the energy they can create. These tools are created by aliens. They were not created naturally by the Creator God. They have been used for thousands of years, but to my disappointment, they fell into the wrong hands. I hope something will happen soon to remove this threat from our universe forever. I believe that in the not too distant future, the right people will rise who will neutralize the power of evil and come to find the treasures that lie beneath the pyramids and the Dome of the Rock. I believe that the knowledge will be exposed to the people of the world, and the world will come to be the true fifth dimensional consciousness of the divine self. Whoever does not reach the fifth dimension will simply become extinct from the universe and will not reincarnate anymore. This means that even their spirit or soul will no longer exist in any capacity. Those who shall survive shall thrive, and eventually shall reach higher dimensions, even as high as ninth and 10th dimensions, as a collective communal awareness. In my opinion, these are the days of the Messiah. All right, we'll stop there and pick up on Monday on the New Age. This is interesting stuff, and looks like about the way we're going. Monday, we'll probably wrap this up. Wow. How cool is this? Again, it's a story. I don't know. We read a lot of books here. But I like what it says. It's like, yeah. We all know that there's something controlling this madness. There is a power, there is a source, there is something. I don't know what you want to call it. It's tangible. I think it lives in the in-between world, the inner dimensions. I really do think it's of potentially a higher consciousness than even the fifth dimension. Well, you're welcome, Darth. It is. That's why I read it. Come on, because, y'all are chatting, but, listen, you just listen to it. It's an interesting story. Most people won't have the ability to read this. So, and it opens up thoughts. I mean, it really does. I mean, who knows? Maybe one day we will reveal who the wizard is, who's really out there, who's really controlling this madness. And madness it is. All right, folks, tune in tonight to the Steiger Perspective. It's a show you're going to want to hear because I can speak freely over there. I can speak in a non-censor environment and format. The great thing about Artists First is that the folks that run that is that they believe in free speech and they believe it passionately. And so we're well on making the Steiger Perspective the #1 show on Artists First. Thank you for that. So make sure your friends, colleagues, families check in. Those who really want to, how shall we say, hear the other side of the story. All right, folks. Gaza, thank you. Thank you so much. Sarah, well, thank you. I think that's what I was always meant to be, the storyteller, the teacher that gets out there. Because, folks, it's all about it. Rejuvenation chamber. Yes, Alan, it reminds me of the SG-1, the system lords. They had the sarcophagus. And they would get in there and the light, the energy would just regenerate their bodies. I think that's exactly what we're talking about. Sounds similar, doesn't it? Does to me. All right, folks. Thank you for hitting the thumbs up. Thank you, Lost in Space, for that. Favorite to you, Delta Hook. Appreciate it. Ellen says, I want the chat to stay open longer. Yeah, I'll leave it open for a little bit. I don't know about that. There we go. Thank you, Regina. Boom. There we go. Thank you all. Much love to you all. And see you tomorrow with the tarot card panel. Steve Zerloff and Jennifer and Amber and Nina. So, going to have fun. All right, folks. Much love to you. See you soon.